All right, good morning, everybody. You made it to this Wednesday morning's edition of the Gareth Cliff Show, cliffcentral.com, and that means you're awake and you're conscious and you're aware and you're not stupidly stumbling around the world, unaware of how to get things. I'll just listen to whatever happens to be on some device that I climb into the vicinity of. I'll just listen to that. That'll be fine. And it's not like my time matters or anything. You see, you've chosen to be here. That's the difference. Always have to explain that to people. They're like, don't you miss radio? No, because the quality of people who listen to you is just 10 times better than anything you can get on radio. People who listen to us here, they've chosen to be here. They just hop in the car and hope that some moron was playing the right song, because that's really what people listen to radio for. I like their music. Idiots. So we've got Simpiwe Mtetwa, we've got Bulelo Tinta, you got you, me, and what else could you possibly need to start your day? We're going to look after you through the course of this morning. We've got Sean Sanders from Revix popping in a little bit later on. That's always good. It's always good to talk to Sean and see what's going on in the world of crypto. I see that's looking a lot healthier than it has in previous weeks, and we'll find out from him why. Also, I saw on the crypto front that Ricardo Spagni, who's the guy who launched Monero, that cryptocurrency, and he's somebody I know. I've had lunch with him a couple of times. He's a South African dude, and he basically launched Monero. I saw that they arrested him in the US yesterday. How hectic is that? Some kind of some court date or something that he's missed, or so. I don't know what it is, but we'll find out, no doubt. And I'll see if I can track him down to have a chat with him, but that'll be interesting. Because, I mean, you don't want to be arrested for anything at the moment, because with lockdowns, they can keep you away from, freedom for as long as they bloody well want. You wouldn't want to be
on the crypto front, or I didn't see that story.
I don't know. I mean, that's what's so confusing to me, is like I've got to figure out what the details of the story is. I just saw it briefly and it flashed on my my news alerts yesterday. Ricardo, Fluffy Pony is what they call him on Twitter. Fluffy Pony. Yeah.
Hard lines, Ricky.
I know. You gotta look after yourself. But being locked up during lockdown is like a double lock. Really not good.
Yeah, it's an inception. The inception. It's the emancipation inception.
Yeah. What do they call it when you look in a mirror and then there's a mirror on the other side and you see yourself reflected? Infinite regression is, I think, what they call it. That's what happens during lockdown if you get locked up. Everywhere you look is just mirrors. Like Jacob Zuma's feeling that at the moment. He's like, I thought I would be having a good time in Nkandla, but now I'm locked up in lockdown. Except I don't think he's laughing. I think he's pretty miserable about it. He was apparently kicking and screaming a bit when they asked him to appear via video link on his his court date. And he's like, no, I want to appear in person. But they're like, but you can't because the country's shut down. He just doesn't seem to get it. Anyway, I wouldn't expect the former president to be totally au fait with technology. Can you imagine him with technology? Do you remember when he had that iPad and he used to use it for his presidential addresses and things that he'd do from the Union buildings? And then he had bookshelves behind him, kind of like what I've got here, except there wasn't a single book on them. They were just empty. They're empty bookshelves. I remember seeing that picture and thinking, that's interesting. That tells you something. He's definitely in the president's office there, but are you telling me the president hasn't got any books on hand? Like maybe a French-English dictionary in case, Emmanuel Macron phones you, or you've got some kind of book on protocol or whatever it might be. Nope, none of that stuff. He didn't have any of it. Wasn't important to him.
No, the only language is the language of corruption. That's it. Fluent in theft and looting. That's it, comrade. He has a degree in being able to manipulate situations. That's all you need, honestly. You don't need to read dictionaries. What's that?
Corona's boring says, what, no drum magazines on the shelf?
Wow.
That's very stereotypical, but we'll take it. We can laugh at that shit here. You're allowed to. Oh man. Yeah, this is a good question. Tracy says, I'd love to know what Jacob Zuma's day-to-day living conditions are in his cell. Like, what is he doing all day? Is he watching TV? You get like 3 good meals a day. He's in which prison is he? An escort or something, right?
I think so.
What's that like?
Isn't he also in isolation because of his age and they don't want him to catch the virus?
I mean, he's probably like in a hospital cell or something, because there's different rules. Like, we can all stop. Just disabuse yourself of the notion that everybody gets treated equally. He's a former president, and there's absolutely no way he would be put in the jail that Simpiwe, Gareth, or Mbulelo or you would go into. There's no way. We'd be in the like communal cells with all the really hardcore criminals, and terrible things would happen to us day and night. But not to him. I bet you he's he's like a bit of a hero to criminals because he's the best of them all, right? He's like the super. He's like, oh, how much did you steal? Oh, you mugged a pensioner. I mugged the whole of South Africa. He's like, you fucking amateurs. Let me teach you how. So I think he's a bit of a hero to the rest of the prisoners. They're like, oh, I'm Shalozi. I'm Shalozi.
He's a hero to all South Africans. For most of us who can't stand him, but you just listen to like the furor around him. But it's a tribal mindset again. He is the king.
I've always said, you spoke about that so well on Monday. It's been ringing in my ears ever since. But I've never disliked the guy personally. There's some people who woke up and used to hate like Robert Mugabe. They used to be like, oh, that guy's the most evil man in the world. Look what he's done to his country. Look what he does to his people on a daily basis. Look at how awful he is. But my problem with anybody is you don't get bad and good people. That's really a terrible way of looking at the world because it makes everything reduced to such a granularity that you really can't see any detail. Because on observation, every person the ones you love and the one you hate, or the ones that you hate, all of them have interesting characteristics, right? They all have different kind of personality attributes, and some of them are really good at this and bad at that, and they're interesting on close observation. Maybe because I'd met him a few times, and I'd spoken to him on the phone once or twice, the former president. I've kind of never had a personal problem with him. And, if he was, I could say without feeling embarrassed about it that I reckon he'd be interesting to talk to and he'd be interesting to have it at a dinner. Don't you think? I think so.
I don't know why people want to like their president. It's like, I don't want to like you. Are you good? Are you good at what you do? Like, I don't want to like the CEO of Tesla.
Yes, I hear you, but Mbulelo, what I'm trying to say is that people do bad and good things, right? There are people who on the basis of their life, you judge them by their actions and you determine whether or not they should, for example, be in prison or whether they should be left alone. That I get. But I'm saying to just binary reduce someone to good or bad, like Robert Mugabe was by far the most educated president in the world when he was president, right? He had a couple of doctorates, a master's degree in something. He was a very smart man. There was no way he was an idiot. But you get these people who dismiss him out of hand. They'd just be like, oh, he's just a moron. Now, I think that's very short-sighted. You don't get to truly appreciate the amount of information that we have on people now. As I can understand in the Middle Ages, they would call you, Mbulelo the Hunchback. So you would be known as because you had a hunchback. That would be the only important thing anyone knew about you. Now you get these people who still use medieval thinking. They're like Robert Mugabe, the despot. And he was that. Sure, that may even have been his most important characteristic. But don't for a moment dismiss the whole person just because you don't like the way that they ran a country. And, blame the people who put them in control of that country if you really want to be cross with somebody. That's what you've got to do. Because, in a really important, powerful, connected situation, the very best people will become even better, and the very worst people will become even worse. But you can't write off someone completely. You have
the nature of
You have to zoom in a little bit. That's all I'm saying. And I'm by no means excusing his behavior, because people also, it's really dumb, but people jump to the conclusion that then you're defending the person's behavior. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying that every person on earth, even the most evil people that have ever lived, there's something about them that, you would say, oh, that's kind of, he's a nice dad to his kids, or he's a really good lover, or or whatever. We know Jacob Zuma was a good lover. I mean, ask any of the 200,000 women he slept with.
No, shout out to
Very
him.
charming. That's all I had to say. Very, very charming.
Didn't he hit on you a couple of times there, Simpiwe? I mean, the Mtetwas are well known to the Zumas. So,
it was really hard to resist him. It took all of me to say no. I would love to, but I can't. I was brought up with morals, and I just had to decline. But it was a very hard decline. I had to think about it for a couple of days.
Wow, yeah.
Look, yeah.
The very nature of Pure turning down Jacob Zuma, that would be such an awesome situation to observe.
See that.
Yeah, but the very nature of mankind, as you get older, is like super idiosyncratic, as you've said. But for me, somebody who I consider very wise in my life told me, as we grow up, true maturity is when you realize that within your mother and father is a good father and a bad father. Like you were saying, is that both of those exist in the same person. And,
yes,
they're always rubbing up against each other, and one wolf sometimes is winning and the other. And that's when we grow up, we start to realize that our mothers and fathers aren't perfect, and you can extrapolate that all the way out to Robert Mugabe and whatever. So I couldn't agree more. It's such an awesome point that you've made.
And like, appreciate that stuff without having to judge sometimes. Like, if it's not your problem, right now, Jacob Zuma isn't our problem. He certainly was the country's problem. Now he's the problem of the justice system, and he's the problem of his own deranged family. But to sit up and keep yourself up at night worrying about or thinking about or being angry about him is just like the most pointless thing in the world. That I can't understand. It's like people who obsess over people who are none of their business. Interesting comments are coming through here. I love this. Carl needs some help. So maybe you can help him here, Mbulelo. Can I ask a question? I'm a guy, but lockdown hasn't been kind to my tummy, he says. I seem to have developed a gunt. What is the male equivalent? No, it's called a gunt for a man as well. It's definitely called a gunt. So if you've got if you're a guy and you stand up facing, if you stand up parallel to the mirror, in other words, you have to look over your left or right shoulder at the mirror, right? And you're naked, and you stare at your body, and it goes chest, and chest is closer to your spine than stomach, or the stomach hangs over any part of the lower extremities, including over the pubis bone, then you have what we call a gunt, I'm afraid. So if you look in the mirror and that's what you could see, it's not a boop, Tracy, it's called a gunt. It really is. It's just the most horrific thing, and that we can't help you.
You hate to hear it.
You got to exercise your tits off and your gunt off in this case, and you have to eat pretty much zero for a couple of weeks. And you've got a month or two until spring is properly here. August is definitely not spring, and I would say spring only really kicks in towards the end of September, even though 1st of September is technically spring day. So get exercising now. You can do this. I mean, it gives you 3, 4, 5 weeks. 5 weeks, you can do a lot. You can really 100%. Do a lot. Just in terms of eating, you could sort out probably 80% of the gunt, depending on
carbs. No carbs. Yeah. You see, if people could learn to cut the sugar and the carbs, like cut the bread out. You listen, if you could just cut bread and not put sugar in your tea for the next 5 weeks, I guarantee that your gunt would just become an ant. You know what I mean? You could drop the G there just by dropping sugar and bread.
A terrible word, though, gunt, isn't it?
But it describes exactly what that is so beautifully, because it's as gross as the name sounds, Right.
Ruth is very proud of herself. She got a full night's sleep after being oxygen all night long. COVID pneumonia is a nightmare. Lots of blessings and happy to be here. Shit. COVID pneumonia. You know, I found out that my dentist, I heard yesterday, my dentist is in hospital, and she's in really like bad shape with this COVID. And she's survived through months and months of this stuff, working in people's mouths, basically. And I thought, you know, and the last time I saw her was what, 3 months ago. She said to me, you know, I'm not worried about this thing. And I thought, well, if she's not worried, I'm not worried. And then I hear she's in hospital. I'm like, oh, Jesus, then I need to take it seriously again. So who knows?
I hear she's really committed to her job. She really sinks her teeth into it.
Oh my God, that is, how cuck is that? I mean, really. Simpiwe, do you want to lean over and smack him in the head, or shall I?
Like,
So bad.
Appalling. Gosh.
All right. Better look out for the evil behind good rather than the good somewhere in evil. Yes.
Sure.
Yes, that's good advice, Michael. I like that. But at the same time, you know, I think you find what you look for. You know, if you're focused on bad things, there's plenty of that to be found. You don't have to look very far.
Speaking of which, you've just brought up something fantastic there. I don't know if you remember a while ago you were saying people about blue hair are a big warning sign. I think you've been saying it. And I did address that with Simpiwe, and that started a whole situation in the office.
Oh,
because she took it personally, and I said I don't really want to get into it. Well, otherwise, it's going to seem like a personal attack.
Let her explain it, because otherwise you're attacking her again. But I will say that yesterday I was at the office, and Simpiwe's hair is this very interesting plum. I wouldn't even say it's purple; it's plum color. And Dory was wearing exactly the same color on her top. And the two of them looked like they'd coordinated things. And then Spike walks in, and he's almost wearing the same color. And I'm like, what are you people? Are you all in some WhatsApp group where you decide what color you're going to have on your head or your body today? Unbelievable. You go ahead, Simpiwe. Defend yourself. Again, you seem to be doing this a lot on the show.
Well, this is not even me trying to defend myself. I'm trying to understand where Mulelo was coming from, because he's just like, the bright hair, the purple hair just screams, you know, it screams something that I just don't want to involve myself in. And that's what I was interrogating. I was asking him, what does that scream? I'd like to know. I'm just curious to know. I'm not too phased with what he has to say, but I'm very curious to, like, what does it scream? Because I just changed my color because, hey, it's what I wanted to do.
You're way more polite than Bolelo and I, so I'm going to read between the lines here. What you're basically saying is you couldn't give a shit what Bolelo thinks, but you want to know what he means when he goes, hey, you know, and it gives you like either a sideways compliment or a sideways insult. You're not sure what it is. So when I brought this up, because I'm going to take responsibility for bringing this one up, and I'll explain it very succinctly, and then we can move on, because I really, it's not meant for you. Normally, when I see particularly women under the age, in fact, no, there's no age limit, because you could be 60 and do this. Let's just say mostly straight women who do this, because I suppose there are different markets for, you know, for lesbian or bisexual or transgender women who do this. But I'm talking more especially about my experience with straight women and hair color. If it's a naturally occurring hair color, black, brown, blonde, red hair, whatever it is, those are naturally occurring hair colors. I don't have any issue with it at all. It's not a signal of anything. Lots of women dye and color and change and tint and highlight their hair. That's absolutely nothing. There are no alarm bells at all. When someone goes with a bright and shocking color like you have, 90% of the time, 90%, I'd say it's that much of a certainty to me, they are a raving lunatic and a danger to society. They are the kind of people you must avoid at all costs. 10% of them are just experimental, fun, playing around. They're fashion forward. They're not particularly interested in what other people think of them. They're doing it for their own pure enjoyment, experimentation, satisfaction. It's something they want to do. They just enjoy it. But the other 90% are definitely insane, bunny boiling, crazy, will murder you in your sleep, are completely fucked up in the head. That's like absolutely without a doubt what I think of 90% of the women who have unnatural hair colors. So you decide, Simpiwe, what, are you in the 10% or in the 90?
Well, I'd like to think I'm in the 10%. But I saw someone make a comment about like blue lipstick. I went through that phase of like having like bright colored lipsticks. And yeah, now it's the hair. But I've always kind of liked color on my hair. And yeah, like it's interesting to hear that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, here's someone who's really, this person is self-aware, not self-absorbed. Pranola says, that is so true. I have bright pink hair and I'm nuts. See? That's what I'm talking about. It's great. Stink Mina says, danger to society. Sunmarie says, just being different. Here's Nell Silver with and blue lipstick. Stay away. So that's interesting. And then Michael says, we can also blame Billie Eilish for a trend towards hair color. Then the SGJWs picked up on it. Now no one wants to call their daughter Karen. Yeah, sure. I'll bet you the name Karen has seen a huge decline in popularity since Karen. It's seen an enormous decline in popularity since the coronavirus pandemic, and the fact that name became a label of like the worst kind of terrible person you want to live near. It's funny. I saw Karen Morn, who we've had on the show a couple of times. Karen Morn, the news journalist. I'm not sure which news organization she works for now, but she put up this really, really terrible coronavirus thing a while ago. And look, I mean, I don't have any issue with Karen Morn, but when you do this, you're going to get some terrible people responding to you. And I'm not in favor of anybody just being mean for no good reason. I think it's completely uncalled for people to just be absolutely mean out of hand and just treat everybody, around them with no sense of decency or kindness at all. But she put up this thing where she basically announced to everybody that she was in hospital with COVID. And she said, please pray for me. I'm trying to find the message, but I'm not going to find it now. Anyway, she put up this message saying, please pray for me. I've got COVID and it's I'm really scared. And people were like, oh, I hope you die in hospital. And, terrible things. People are just very. And then she tweeted, I saw yesterday, or Instagram, I can't remember which one it is. And she said, I'm back. And then commented about like Jacob Zuma's trial or whatever. And somebody who's pretending to be Hlaudi Motsoeneng, because it's a parody account, obviously, said, welcome back, Satan. It's like, people are so mean. They've got no choice. Right?
No, people are mean. I listen, if you're in the public sphere, people are mean. There are mean people on this planet. Yeah. But I think what happens with people who step up and they go through the echelons is that they hear less and less no's. That everybody, you know what I mean? Because you're the center of, if she's the news anchor, she's the center of power in whatever world she lives in for 2 hours a day. So very rarely will she hear, no, that hair is terrible. You're putting on a bit of weight. She'll never hear that. All she hears, oh, you're unbelievable. Oh, yes, you were. You know what I mean? And so that when you realize the real world is full of people that are deeply unhappy, had traumatic past, and they're going to let it out on social media now. And if you're in the public sphere, just deal with it. I'm sorry. That's not insensitive.
If your name's Karen, you just double the hatred that's going to flow your way,
Thoughts and prayers.
By the way, I went for a haircut yesterday after we talked about this with Lebang on the show. For like half an hour, we were talking about like, where people get their haircut and what kind of processes it is, how expensive it is, blah, blah, blah. So I went up the road and a woman called, because I was at the office and I had a gap between meetings. So I went to the nearest shopping center and I went to a place there. And, it's not a hairdresser. It's a like a male salon barber type place. 32 minutes. This woman called Tertia cut my hair. 32 minutes. Amazingly fast, amazingly efficient. I don't really care. Like, I don't have instructions for my hairdresser, so I just sit down and go like tidy it up, and then they must just figure it out. And if I come out looking like a moron, then I'll look like a moron for a couple of days, and I just won't go back there again. That's that. I'm not a complainer. I'm not going to go, oh, it's not really what I wanted. So luckily it was good. And I just love the fact that it was so quick. Like 32 minutes, man. That's amazingly quick.
And what did you get? Chatty, like, hey, how are you? And what's happening? You have any kids?
Sat down in the chest, give us a little trim. She did that, and then she also did that very, very nice nose waxing thing, which I absolutely love. So that was in the 32 minutes. So I got my hair cut, washed, got the nose wax thing done. Fucking great. Got out of there, and it took me, including getting in the car, paying for parking, walking in and walking out. Between leaving the office and getting back to the office, it was probably about 45 minutes. That's really efficient. I like
Fantastic.
That. I'm still shocked at hearing how short it takes guys to get their hair done. For a very long time, I had like an afro and I used to do braids. And it's a whole day event. Like, I know if I was going to get my hair done, I'm not doing anything that weekend. Like, I'm fully booked, and then my head's going to be sore for the next couple of days. And now that I've cut my hair, it's like, oh, wow, like, okay, it takes 30 minutes. Sure. What do you do now?
Well, I mean, listen, those
okay.
braids and afros and things, that really is a process. You just have to settle into that chair because you're going to be there a long ass time. There's some very nice compliments for you this morning, Simpiwe. Robin says, your hair looks beautiful, Simpiwe. What a lovely color. Onkgopotse says, I love your hair color, Simpiwe. See? So it's not, you don't have to listen to me and Bulelo.
Yeah. Otherwise,
Obi Kenobi says, my hair is done like Mbulelo. Cheese cop, 10 minutes.
Good for you.
There we go.
Good for you.
Michael also saying,
when you get your haircut, do they put king spirits once they're done?
Absolutely not. No. They're never. No. There's a. So at a cheap hairdresser, what they do is after they've cut it, they think you put like methylated spirits on the hair. I've never known what they think the science is behind there, but I'm very, very clear. There's also a reason why I'm willing to pay a little extra. Bring hair products, and you're not putting spirits in my hair. No, I'm not that guy. It's a thing in the. It's a thing in the hood, Gareth. Just so you know, like mostly in the hood, the hairdresser cut your hair, like basically chop your head,
and it's just like
chop your head. Yeah,
no, that's good. You don't want that,
and it burns like hell.
Yeah, not only is that probably really bad for you, but it's it doesn't sound like it looks nice either. How much did I pay for the haircut? I was 300 and something, so it wasn't even so bad. But then my brother tells me it was his birthday yesterday, so we were all together for his birthday at their house last night. He says he found a dude up the road $100 for a shave and a haircut. So I
Turkish
feel like
guy.
I think
Turkish guys are. I'm seeing the Turkish guys are taking over that whole scene.
Yep. All right, very good. In the 1980s, there were men and boys barbershops for 12 Rand for short back and sides. Yes, but Errol, that was the 1980s. I mean, there was a lot that was cheap in the 1980s. Chappies. You could buy I think you could buy handfuls of chappies for like 10 cents back in the 80s. So let's compare apples and apples, if you don't mind. Just quickly before we get to some headlines, Bulelo, I watched the Olympics again last night. I just love that pole vault, man. I was watching these guys jumping. 6.02 meters was the Swede who won the pole vaulting last night. That's 6 meters. Yeah, how high that is. And the best part is the pole that they use doesn't even come up to where the pole across that they have to get over is. In other words,
they're incredible.
They have to get to the very top, the apex of that pole. Once it's bent and it's straightened out, and the springiness has kind of propelled them forward and up. They then also have to push up and over the other bar. It's unbelievable. I'm blown away by people like that. It's phenomenal.
Freaks of nature. And it's awesome that every 4 years they humble us. They just like, no. There are apex versions of what this is what it's supposed to be. And you're actually you are the scum beneath the bubble gum beneath shoes compared to me. If we they are.
I feel like
different.
I'm rooting around in the trash, and I'm some kind of Homo habilis, some kind of like backward caveman, primitive man. When I watch these people on the Olympics, and I think, except the only place where I'd say that maybe I'm a little more evolved, Central Asia. Their thing is definitely the weightlifting. Central Asia. There were a lot of people from Uzbekistan and Albania and Kazakhstan, and those are people. And the names as long as your arm. And font size 10. These people are like from, Turkmenistan, and all they've done their whole life since they were 5-year-old boys is pick up heavy shit, and like they lift the stuff. That's what they do. And then you find out that you're actually watching the women's one. You're like, wow, okay, unbelievable. That's pretty amazing. That's their thing. In Central Asia, that's their thing, is the weightlifting and the powerlifting.
Yeah, and it's just that's a big time technique sport. I'm tiny, but it's like I once tried to do it. The technique is too much for me. I couldn't even handle it with the uber lightweights. The technique's phenomenal. It's just something else, man. I did cry in the fetal position 2 days ago at home after I went home. Was because I watched a ladies' heat 400 meter, so that's one lap of the track.
Yes,
and it was the hurdles, and like in high school, I was a pretty decent athlete. They were doing a faster time in the 400 hurdles heat for the lady who finished last than my 400 time. No hurdles, and I was in high school, school. Yeah. What's that? I'm just doing the athletics thing. These ladies look fine. They just look like they're going to go home and, I don't know, play Sudoku or whatever people do, No, just fine. 51-second lap. What?
I mean, Pranola here even says that the ladies' long jump was 7 meters yesterday. Sure. 7 meters. Imagine being able to jump 7 meters. That's you could jump over rivers and shit. Like you could power yourself over roads. Like you think about like the highway with 4 lanes. You could get over at least 2.5, 3 of those easily. It's just great. It's so great. I love it. Then I suddenly look at the javelin and I'm like, wow, they invented this sport back in ancient Greece, and there are people doing this now. It's amazing. Love it. And Namibian won silver for the 200 meters apparently.
Oh, has that just happened? Because when was the 200 meters? This morning?
I don't know.
Either way,
we must be a bit of a ball ache though with the time difference, right?
Yeah, it's tough to watch the Olympics properly now, especially for us because we're sort of here, But we're also in the presence of greatness, and something which I'm not very good at is appreciating that. Like nobody appreciated, if you're a sports fan, Tiger Woods when he was doing it. There was 10 years where you were actually watching something you'll probably never see again. We're seeing true greatness. Usain Bolt, okay, we did appreciate him. They sort of stuffed him down our throats, but the Jamaicans have another one now, and she is incredible. She's done something which has never been done before. Elaine Thompson-Herah, right? She's just won something very, very special. It's called the double-double. So it's when you win the 100 and the 200 in the Olympics at the same time. But she's now done it twice. She did it in Rio, and she did it now. You got to think, what makes these people special is 4 years apart, what you have to do, and 5 years apart now, is essentially produce for 30 seconds. You cannot be off for 30 seconds of your life every 4 years, and she's nailed it. It's just remarkable, and we must appreciate these people. We may never see something like that again. She is a gift to humanity. Someone like that. It's quite incredible. So somebody in history has history's just gone down at the World Games, right, which is the Olympics. So I thought that was cool, and the Jamaicans bring a different vibe. They're not like us squares here in the West. They've just got that cool thing. Like I think every Jamaican is just your grandmother was Jamaican.
They seem like Jamaican. Yeah, they just seem to have more fun in life. They seem to take life less seriously, and it's that whole Caribbean vibe. They just in Jamaica, you want to smoke weed, smoke weed. You want to go and have a sleep on the beach under a straw hat, you do that. You want to go and work, work. They have a totally different approach to life, and I'm telling you, their approach is much healthier in the long run. We put ourselves under unnecessary pressure. I'd like to go and visit Jamaica. I've never been there. Got to go and see it for myself. Anyway, Simpiwe's got a couple of good questions that we'll get to just after headlines. But let me help you out with a couple of those quickly in case you are wondering what the hell's happening in the world. We do need to occasionally pay attention to what's happening. So let's take a look. Where shall we begin? Headlines. Ugh. So much of it is just stuff you don't want to hear. But let me see what I've got here for you. Oh, by the way, we'll also be joined by Yaku Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, the host of Unbundled here on Cliff Central. He's got an interesting announcement to share with us, which will affect you, especially if you're a small and medium-sized business. And if you're an owner of those businesses, you work for one, because we want to help you after the year and a half, almost 2 years of lockdown that we've had. And we've got a plan, which I'm pleased to say Yaku came up with this plan, and it's a good one to help those businesses. So if you'd like to know more, stick around until 7:30 and we'll tell you everything you need to know. So apparently the election date is set for the 27th of October, pending a court decision. This is good news, because if they can move your elections, they can do anything to you. The date for the local government elections will remain the 27th of October until a court decides otherwise. That's according to COGTA Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who says the date will be officially gazetted as required by the Constitution. The IEC is approaching the court. They're the ones asking for a delay in the elections. Former Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke found that the elections in October would not be free and fair if we hold them then. Dlamini Zuma said service delivery shouldn't be affected if local government elections don't go ahead in October. So they're already covering their backsides in case they have to move it. But we have to ask ourselves, who would benefit from moving the elections? The people of South Africa? One or two of the political parties? The IEC themselves? Who?
Wait, hold on. Why are they saying service delivery will be affected? There is none. How can you affect something that's not happened?
Exactly. I love the way Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is like, no, service delivery won't be affected. What are you talking about? Hello? What service delivery? There isn't such a thing. Amazon is going to launch a Lord of the Rings series in September. This is very exciting for those people who loved the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, which came out after that. The streaming service Amazon hopes to release a yet-to-be-titled series which will rival success of the Game of Thrones. First episode will be available on the 2nd of September, 2022. You know what? Don't tell us then until you got something to show us. Am I right? Like, who wants to know a year and a half in advance? Huh? Or a year in advance, in this case. Really?
It's the build up to it. It's so that you get excited and, I think a year is a bit of a stretch, but I get some people are like fans and they already know what's happening in their lives in a year or two.
I can't get excited about something a whole year in advance. It's mad. Anyway, Amazon acquired the TV rights to the cult classic in 2017 for an estimated $250 million. Yo! Who still thinks $250 million, right? If J.R.R. Tolkien was still alive, his estate obviously gets that. So either his heirs or the publishers or whoever. That is $250 million paid by the world's richest man. I think he just fell off that position, by the way. But $250 million for the imagination of one person who was born in the Free State. Just think about that. It means that if you still think that your greatest talent, your greatest skill, and your greatest opportunity lies outside of you, you're not paying attention. Am I wrong? In his head, in his imagination, he invented a universe, this J.R.R. Tolkien. He created characters. It was all his imagination. And hard work, sitting down there writing. I'm sure he threw away draft after draft after draft of every chapter. But it was in his head that people 100 years after he lived can still pay $250 million for the rights to that series. That just shows you someone you meet today could have the next $250 million idea in their head. They don't have to make.
Famed British drunkard Winston Churchill said, and quite rightly said, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind, and we're starting to see that. Back in the day, you just used to go down the blacksmith or whatever you do and sharpen the knife and go home. You get paid for your toil, and now ideas and intellectual property. So he was right in between putting down that liquor. Eh?
And I mean, listen, who won't acknowledge, as Bruce says here, that Tracy says J.R.R. Tolkien inspired so many after him, especially Game of Thrones, and you could say Harry Potter. You could even say Star Wars. A lot of those were the at least the successors to what he started in terms of Lord of the Rings. And you could say C.S. Lewis's Narnia stuff. So if you put all that together and you add the amount of money that Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Narnia, and Harry Potter, you just put those 5 together, you have billions and billions and billions of dollars from the imagination of ordinary people. So come on, what's wrong with you? Start writing now. You might just be a billionaire in a 10, 20 years time. Do it. What do you got to lose? Just a couple of billion. All right. This is an interesting point. Wasn't Lord of the Rings that gay porn series? Carl, thanks.
Who said that?
Carl.
Someone's on fire. That's fantastic.
He says Lord of the Rings is a gay porn series. Yeah, very good. All right. So those are some headlines. I'm not going to go into too much of the other stuff. There's plenty to talk about. We don't want to get too heavy into the politics today. We saved that for Thursdays, and tomorrow is Thursday, so we'll do the Burning Platform with Phumi Mashiko tomorrow. Lots of interesting guests coming on the Burning Platform in the next few weeks. You've got to listen every week. I don't want you to miss any of it. Last week we had a great guy on. Week before we had some great people on. Canthan rejoined us for a little bit, so you've got to stick around. In fact, we spoke about water security last week. And if you haven't listened to my interview with Chris Wyatt, you need to go and check that out, please. That is on cliffcentral.com. It's available right now as a podcast. It's a good hour long, and we cover a whole bunch of stuff. So if you're interested in politics, you're interested in what's going on in South Africa from the outsider's point of view, you need to listen to what Chris has to say. And then I'm so excited, guys. I just got this from someone called Julian Alfonso, and when I click on his email address, it's at gmail.com, and it says, the Federal Trade Commission has given the Inland Revenue Department $2 billion. I want to inform you, you've been selected to receive this fund. Isn't this great? To claim your fund, contact whatever his name is to direct you on how to receive the fund. And then it says, please send your bank details with it. So obviously, guys, this is what I've been waiting for. This is my billion. So how excited am I?
Oh.
Huh? Isn't that great?
Sure. Amazing.
Yeah, hey, what will you do with that money? What's the best thing you're going to buy? It's so exciting. You can be like, I don't need this job.
It sounds so legit. It's too good to be true. Yeah.
Oh,
and I saw after all of the talk of her for the last 2 weeks, Simone Biles eventually got bronze in the award ceremony yesterday, right?
And it's a good thing. Like it's a good thing because people always get caught up in once you've held one position about her behavior, it means that you hate her. No. What I was saying, we spoke of idiosyncrasy. Anyway, I don't want to go over that. It's a great thing to say, okay, whatever she's going through, nobody knows. We've all, I think, come to that, is that she went through some stuff. She came back and won a bronze medal. It wasn't a gold. Okay, fine. But the sport needs her. And in this time, the world needs someone like her. Like she is from, that background. And she's just insane. She's a gift to humanity.
There's space for everybody. And you don't have to win all the time to be a winner. And you don't have to lose all the time to not occasionally be a winner. To be called a loser forever and in every circumstance. Some people have good days and bad days too, and you no one's perfect all the time. God damn it! Let's get to Sean Sanders. Let's talk a little bit about cryptocurrency this morning. It's always good to get an update from Sean on what's going on in the world, and there's lots of crypto news. Has there ever been a week where we've not had crypto news? I mean, that's the question, right, Sean? Hasn't ever happened.
No, this is the most exciting market in the world, right? So That's what we're on every week, to give people an
You know,
update. And yeah,
if we weren't on every week, we just wouldn't have enough time to discuss. In fact, as it is, we don't have enough time to talk to you about all these different things. But let's just talk for a second about. I saw he's been arrested. Ricardo Spagni from Monero, Fluffy Pony, as he's known on social media. I don't know the details of this. He says it's not a big deal. It's because he missed some court date or something. But he has been arrested in the United States. Maybe you know some detail about this. It sounds like a lot of the authorities are starting to get a little bit antsy about crypto. And here in this country, you discussed with us 2-3 weeks ago, those two guys in Cape Town who took one of their wallets and just disappeared with a whole lot of people's money. So people are starting to pay the price for being crooks in this environment. I'm not saying that that's what happened with Ricardo, but it certainly happened with those other guys. And there are people investigating them at the moment, right?
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on the regulatory front. With Ricardo, I mean, he was arrested by US authorities. There was a warrant out for his arrest in South Africa. I don't really have more details than that. It was actually with regard to something that apparently happened in, I think, 2008 or 2009. He was working for another company, and there was apparently fraudulent invoices that were provided. So it's actually got really nothing to do with crypto. But yeah, just so everyone knows, I mean, Fluffy Pony, as he's known, I mean, only in the crypto world do you have something like Fluffy Pony as a name. But Ricardo, he created Monero, which at one point in time was a top 10 cryptocurrency. I think it's sitting around 18 or 19 right now. And it's the world's most privacy-focused cryptocurrency. So your identity is anonymized when using this network. So a lot of people think that when you make a Bitcoin transaction or Ethereum transaction or Litecoin transaction, that it's anonymous. And the correct term is that's actually pseudonymous. So you have an identity. So just like your bank account number that is tied to you. I mean, in some way, shape, or form, you could trace this back to you. And what Monero does is it actually obfuscates this transaction. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, great, well, that's used just by drug dealers and people that are looking to do dodgy things. But no, just like, with data privacy, there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, no, it's not the government's right to have access to my information, or not have the right to access to what I'm spending my money on. So there was actually a really interesting use case, and there still is, for the likes of Monero, but the governments have clamped down really hard on privacy-focused cryptocurrencies.
I wouldn't be surprised, and this is pure conjecture on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised because he represents a cryptocurrency that is privacy-focused, and because that is probably an area that governments are the most nervous about, that he would be on a lot of people's watch lists. If you're if you're a bureaucrat who's interested in keeping an eye on what goes on the internet, I'm sure that Ricardo is one of those people everybody in the world's watching, and therefore, if they can find a reason to clamp down on him, they probably would look for it. I'm not defending him. I'm not saying I know any more than anyone else, but it sounds to me, like he would represent a fairly big interest for those who are interested in law enforcement and regulation and clamping down and getting in the way of ordinary people just doing their thing on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it is the system versus crypto at this point in time. I can tell you right now, as operating as a crypto provider in South Africa and the EU and the UK, the banks hate you, and understandably so, right? I mean, there's a high money laundering risk because they're not, used to understanding, or they don't quite understand exactly how transactions occur. So to them, they see this as a high risk. People are just, putting money into the platforms and it's disappearing, and that's all deemed to be money laundering, which is a bit strange. But don't get me wrong. I mean, crypto definitely, isn't the shining knight. It does have this dark past. With the likes of Silk Road and all the rest. But I mean, it is quite remarkable, right? You've had the likes of the Chinese government clamp down really hard on mining. You've had the US government clamp down recently, and that's driven a lot of firms out into some weird and wonderful places like the British Virgin Islands and the Cayman Islands and all the rest. The UK and Europe, generally speaking, have also clamped down. So they've introduced their own crypto regulations. South Africa's been slow, but we're getting there. So there is a regulatory clampdown occurring, and yet still this is a category that is getting more press attention and is growing every single year. I mean, the average growth rate of cryptocurrency as an asset class is 180% per year compounded annually over the last 7 years. I mean, there's no other asset class out there that's kind of growing at this rate, and that's a long-term trend. right? So, I mean, you take this to a hedge fund or a pension fund and you say, listen, this is the numbers. Like, forget about what the asset class is. This is the numbers. Would you want to invest? And they'd be saying, well, this is better than Tencent. This is better than Alibaba. This is better than any of the big players. Actually, just as I say, Tencent and Alibaba, I mean, think about what's going on in China right now. I mean, this is a huge use case for crypto. Governments are stepping in saying, listen, no, you're not allowed to do this. We are essentially claiming the entire private educational industry as a government-run institution or government-run institutions. And if there's ever a use case for some sort of a decentralized, non-sovereign type of entity or program, I mean, there you go, right? So
I have to ask you. I mean, I'm so pleased you brought up that banks hate the cryptocurrency people, because banks and old government kind of institutionalized wealth, those people are not happy where they're not in control. And really, if you ask the average person, do they love banks and do they love governments? Only the really stupid people will say yes. Am I wrong?
No, of course. I mean, you're 100% correct. The weird thing is, right, I mean, of course, it's like the postman liking Gmail or like the early days of the internet, right? Obviously, emails taking away their business. Now, what I think is really interesting is, we're in discussions with a few different banks to offer crypto as a product on their platform, because they're looking over at PayPal and they're looking over at Square in the US, and they're saying, well, these guys are making a lot of money from this. How can we offer it? Even the likes of Vodafone, you go to your Vodacom app or your MTN app, even them, they're actually looking at offering this so you can buy Bitcoin or Ethereum using your airtime. I mean, so this is all happening in the background. It's super exciting.
Sean, let's not bullshit ourselves that they're doing that because they really care about the new technologies or they're looking for opportunities. They do it for two reasons. Number one, because they're terrified that this is going to mean extinction for them. So they're really just covering their own backsides. And the other thing is they see the huge kinds of profits that you're talking about being made here, and they feel like they're missing out. So it's they're negatively motivated on both fronts. And that should always make you suspicious. Just like they're suspicious of cryptocurrency, we should be suspicious of them.
Oh, definitely. I mean, again, what are they trying to do? They're trying to optimize for the amount of money that they're making. They want to make as much cash as possible. Introducing something that a lot of people want, great way to do it, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. So what other updates do you have for us for this week? Because you mentioned China, and, cryptocurrency did come under quite a lot of pressure for at least the last 2, 3, 4 months. And I see that it's steadily crept back up to just under $40,000. In fact, today we're looking at 38,000, which is not bad for a Bitcoin. What do you see as the trends going forward? Are there any big obstacles in the road, or are there things that you're particularly excited about? I know people are more interested in maybe some of the smaller cryptocurrencies at the moment than they are in Bitcoin. But what do you see as the kind of unfolding of the rest of this year? Because we've heard all kinds of claims, people saying it's going to go to $100,000. We got people who are wildly predicting the failure of it. Do you think it's just settling into a comfort zone now?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It is just getting into a position where people are more comfortable with the prices. What's really interesting as well is that you've seen over the last 4 or 5 months the biggest migration of crypto mining rigs, which is something that a lot of people don't really talk about, but it is the biggest price driver in the crypto space, because that is the supply side of the price supply versus demand equation. And all the miners, I mean, just so a bit of context here. So there was about 65% of all Bitcoin mining occurring in China. Why? Because there's cheap hydropower, there's solar power, there's other power there as well. So it's just a really cheap sort of source, and especially in South China. And that's recently had to move over to other countries. Why? Because the Chinese government has outlawed crypto mining. And most of these mining rigs have moved over to Texas, believe it or not, because again, cheap electricity. And that migration is a very expensive exercise. It's expensive to move mining rigs. Often you actually have to just buy new mining rigs. It also means that there's a period of time when these miners which are introducing new Bitcoin into the market are actually offline. And what that's meant is that these miners who are holding really big reserves are having to sell them into the market. So you've seen a very big increase in supply from the miners. And you're talking, 4 or 5 times the average daily amount of supply coming onto the market. And now that's occurred. So over the next 3 or 4 months, that's going to be behind us. You're going to have new mining rigs set up. Most of the Chinese miners would have moved over to Texas and some other weird and wonderful places. And I think then all of a sudden you're sitting in this game of saying, well, is there more demand than supply? And that's what drives prices higher. So over the long term, will there be more demand than supply? My thoughts are yes. But again, we just don't know, right? I mean, looking at smaller cryptocurrencies, like, of course, there's a lot of up and comers. Binance Coin's up about 1,200% over the last year. Cardano's up 700%. These are cryptos that are coming from a far smaller base than the likes of Bitcoin or Ethereum. So there's a lot more upside potential. But again, you just can't pick which one. And that's why, I mean, we sit here with this top 10 bundle. We say that's our best thesis in terms of how to get exposure to this market. We believe that a diversified product that provides exposure to the space at a low cost is what you should be investing in. So I'm going to keep saying that week on week. It's unfortunately sort of the boring thing, but it's what we believe in.
You know what people say. It's being important, being prime in people's mind, and repetition of the message. And really, I mean, you've been very consistent about this. Is you need to diversify, just like you would into shares in the stock market, or into a property portfolio, or into gold, or into anything else. You need to also diversify your crypto holdings. And the best way to do that, in my experience, and I am a client and I'm a fan of what you guys do at Revix. So go and sign up if you haven't already. Revix Invest is their handle on social media. That's REVIX Invest on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also sign up at Revix, REVIX.com for free. You verify your ID, you add some funds, whatever you want to add. You don't have to add all your money. In fact, we would be we'd be giving you terrible advice if we said add all your money to anything. And go and try it out. Start with a small amount of money and see where it goes. You've got nothing to lose. You might have some things to gain. Go for it. All right, Sean, nice to see you, man. Thanks very much.
Brilliant, guys. Have a good rest of the day. Okay.
By the way, are you the only person in the office at this time right now?
No, we've got two offices in the same building. The one downstairs is for the devs, where the customers don't come in. And that's packed at the moment. And they generally like to start work a little earlier in the day. And then the office upstairs is quiet. So it's just me here.
Yeah, I always like getting to the office sometimes when there's no one else there, and you get so much done.
You do. So some people are good at working at night. Some people are good at in the morning. I'm far better in the morning. I'm terrible at night. So this is my happy place.
Very nice. All right, Sean. Good to see you, dude.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Sean Sanders, Revix.com. And join them and figure out what's going on there. And we'll give you updates every week with Sean and his terrific team. Okay. So what we've got coming up in the next hour, we've got old Yaku from Unbundled. We'll talk to him a little bit about his idea to kickstart and to help small and medium enterprises in South Africa. Let me quickly tell you, we talked about diversifying your portfolio, right? South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop, who, of course, bring you Collectomania on a Monday on cliffcentral.com. They are spreading some love again. As you know, they are supporters of 67 blankets for Nelson Mandela Day. And we actually spoke to them with Carolyn Stain just a couple of days ago, and Alan Demby from the South African Gold Coin Exchange. We spoke to them a couple of weeks ago. Now they are giving all you professionals on LinkedIn the opportunity to nominate someone who is making a difference. And you could win a half-ounce gold Krugerrand worth 15,000 Rand. So what you need to do is go and check out the South African Gold Coin Exchange on LinkedIn. It's your chance to win some gold, people. Gold. Arg, didn't you want some gold, me hearties? Get some gold in your gold chest. No, seriously, if you want to win, I mean, 15,000 Rand in gold there's nothing to smirk at. That's something good to have. You will try. Who doesn't want that? Come on.
Oh, my God.
Go along to LinkedIn, find the South African Gold Coin Exchange on LinkedIn, and they want you to nominate someone who's making a difference among the professionals that you know on LinkedIn. They will reward you for telling them about that person. You could end up with 15,000 Rand in gold, a half-ounce Krugerrand. That's nice. So go and check it out on their LinkedIn. Lots of people here talking about the banks, which Sean brought up. Michael says the banks want us to store our money with them rather than use them as a funnel to fund and withdraw from crypto accounts. They are being replaced by a digital wallet. Yep. And guess what? Nobody likes to be replaced. The moment they see their successor coming along, they get very antsy. They go, oh, why am I here? What use am I? But the best thing someone told me a long time ago is that unless you are working to replace yourself in whatever job you do. And think about your own job while I say this. Unless you are working to replace yourself and to find someone who can do your job now, you will never go up. You won't move to the next thing until you find someone to replace you doing the thing you do right now. So if you want to keep advancing, You want to keep climbing. You want to keep moving ahead. You need to find someone to eventually take over the responsibilities you have now. And that goes for banks too. If they want to move ahead, they need to find someone to replace them at this level, and they need to move to the next level. Otherwise, they're going to run out of usefulness and out of practical promise and value to ordinary people. Ricochet Music says, if you bought 1,000 theta, now this is one of the cryptocurrencies I haven't heard of, they were R1.80 in February 2020, you would have multiplied that to 247,500 rand in March 2021. How's that?
Sure.
Unbelievable, right?
That sounds unreal.
Yes.
So if you bought, okay, at 100, at R1.80, 1,000 of them. So what would that have been? 1,800. Isn't that right?
Yeah, $1,800. Yeah.
So 247,500 rand. Yeah, I mean, listen,
that's tasty.
Hindsight is 20/20 vision, right? Unbelievable. Morning world. This is from Mapadim, who says, I just woke up and I'm catching up on the podcast while enjoying my holiday in Cape Town, living my best life. Hydrate. Elbow cough. Nice for you. That sounds great. The difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur is that an entrepreneur works every day to make himself redundant. That's according to Carl. That's a nice way of saying the same thing that I was saying just now. Very good. All right. It is 7:00. We'll be back in a moment or two with a whole lot more. Stick around. cliffcentral.com. You can comment and like on the YouTube channel, but please subscribe and like at the same time. Thank you.
This week on Auto Central.
The number one thing I think people should never do to their car or in their car is texting and driving. For sure. Yep. That is my number one pick. I don't know how you feel is the worst thing to do or some of the things that you shouldn't do.
Definitely texting and driving. I mean, I didn't have that at the top of my mind when we came into this, but definitely texting and driving. I think that's probably one of the worst and most dangerous things to do is text and drive. Don't do it.
Catch Auto Central, SA's #1 motoring podcast, every Monday at 9 a.m.
Hi, my name is Martin Bosov. I'm the culture evangelist at King Price Insurance. So what culture? How culture? We do a little bit of a resilience program with them. Just quick things, strengthening them as individuals. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you might have read it, heard it 1,000 times, etc.
Grunt when getting out of the car? Creak when getting out of bed? Do you walk into a room and forget why? Are you having trouble in the sack? Is the hump in a slump? Join me, Chris Avon-Smith, and Dr. Mark on the T-Health Show every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. where we talk to medical and allied professionals about those serious and not so serious medical lifestyle issues. The T-Health Show, sponsored by the T-Clinic. The T-Health Show is available on podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Yebo. CliffCentral.com on a Wednesday morning, the 4th of August already. Things are moving very steadily towards that part of the year that we love most, summer. All those winter people, you've had your fill now. I don't want to hear from you, not for a long time. Simpiwe's got a couple of questions for us this morning, and I think we've got to give them attention. They deserve attention. First thing is, she wants to know, and you can explain this probably better than I can, Simpiwe. Are we overcomplicating our lives with all these terms when it comes to gender and relationships? Now, you remember not so long ago on the show, we ended up talking about people who are aromantic and people who are asexual, people who are trans this and bi that and homo this and hetero that. And it's become totally confusing. There are also now people, I heard about this the other day. There are people who are, they're saying that it's a category to only be attracted to beautiful people. Now, I didn't know that needed a category all for itself. I don't know what the word is for it, but, why does that need a name? And I suppose this is what you were thinking, but you explain what you mean.
Yeah, so I'm a bit overwhelmed with all these terms for everything. Like there's a cis man, cis woman, asexual, non-binary, binary, and then it's like pronouns. You can't just say him, her. It's like them, they. It's just a lot. Like I feel like I'm relearning how to speak to people at a big age of 20 something. Because for me it's quite simple. It's either male or female. And if you look like a man, I shall address you as a man. And if you look female, I shall address you as a female. And if you say, hey, girl, like, oh, I don't want that, then I'd be like, oh, okay, hi. But I'm just saying that it gets to a point when even if you greet someone, you're like, hi, sir. There's so much uproar to be like, why are you assuming it's a sir? Why? It's too many. There's too many terms. No.
I think what's happened is that people are so self-absorbed now. And especially since the lockdowns, you've suddenly, a lot of people have realized they don't actually do anything. They're not they don't have a skill. So their only skill is looking inward the whole time. And they've become so self-analytical and self-absorbed and self-centered, really, that it's all about them the whole time. And they're thinking about what to call themselves and creating new categories. And, please look at me, I'm special. That's really all I can think that it is. And so much of it is unnecessary and stupid. It's just stupid. Here's the question that you put somewhere in that explanation, which I thought, wow, you've hit on something really important here. You said, all these terms, like there's cis and there's bi and there's homo and there's hetero and there's this and there's that. And everybody has a term for everything now. But how useful? How does that stuff serve you? Is it adding value to your life or is it making your life more complicated? Because usually that's a good sign that you should either do something or you shouldn't. Is this going to improve my life? How? Or is it going to take value and time away from me and not reward me in any significant way? I don't really care what category anybody else is. In fact, I don't even care who anybody else is having sex with. It's none of my business. And unless somehow I'm tangentially involved because it's someone close to me or it's someone who I care about quite a lot, I don't see how any of that impacts on my life. And therefore, it's not going to add value to my day. It's going to take up more time. And I probably shouldn't spend any effort at all thinking about it. What do you think, Mbolelo?
Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand. Unless you're a biologist and there's reproduction involved, why does that matter? Or is it that important in identity? Like I wish I could sit down, because for me, whenever I get caught up in these sorts of conversations with generally the NGO kids who just sit in Rosebank and do nothing, is that they tend to all head this way with the blue hair, and they generally all have that stuff. Is now like I walk away because like I don't have time for this. You're not doing anything because maybe I'm not smart enough to understand how idiosyncratic you think you are, but I don't get it other than basically, I don't know, it becomes it's a crass term, but it becomes a bit of a mental masturbation festival where it's super meaningless.
Well,
It
Well, maybe this stuff has replaced personality, because a lot of the people who are so absorbed with these labels, Simpiwe, and you could tell me if because you've maybe met some of these people and you have some reference point, Bulelo, you can as well, and anybody who's listening, actually. I find a lot of these people who are obsessed with this identity stuff don't have a lot of personality. And this stuff is filling a hole in their lives that used to be for personality or for interests or for hobbies or for skills or for things. Like, we speak to people on Collectomania every week. Don't tell me those people aren't interesting. And not one of them have we been interested in their identity. They're interesting people. Collect rosaries and Princess Diana dolls, and they have interesting things to talk about. That there are people who read amazing books who you can have really interesting conversations with. There are people who have quirky personalities. They make you laugh. These are not the people we're talking about when we talk about these labels. I feel like the labels are actually making up for a lack of personality and character. That's what I think.
And I'd like to know what you think, Simpiwe. But for me, just because of the type of person I am, is your gender and your skin color are generally not interesting to me. And if they are interesting, and if you present them as the most interesting thing about you, I'm not interested in you, because I'm interested in can you learn? Can you think? What do you think? How did you get to that position?
It's like CrossFit or veganism. So what do you think?
So for me personally, it's if you want to go by him, her, they, whatever, that's great. My biggest issue is now, how do I navigate this world? Because, for instance, I was taught that when you see a boy, it's a him. And now when you're trying to even address things, or you're addressing people, be it on Twitter, be it in person, be it wherever, it's like, oh, hold up, I can't say this, I can't say that. Like, there's so many terms now that even I'm like, okay, I'm lost. Like, what do I just say? Hi there, hi them, and that's the confusing part. In as much as I'm not trying to be in that world, we kind of all getting forced to be in that world, because the terms are being created, and eventually it's going to trickle down in schools and life orientation. They're going to be like, these are the pronouns and this is that. And I'm just trying to understand, how do I then interact with people when, for me, if you are a boy, I'm going to say boy. If you look like a girl, I'm going to say girl. I'm not, whether you're a trans woman or a trans man, how you look is how I will address you. And that's also in itself a flaw, because people are like, oh, you can't do that. And it's like, it's a lot. It's so much. Like,
the funniest thing is, like, we were talking earlier about how blue hair or whatever is a warning sign. To me, the ultimate warning sign is if you go into someone's social media, and they in their biography they have their pronouns. I'm like, ooh, there's no way I can get along with this person. That's pretty much a red rag to a bull. I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. Sorry, I know that's a terrible generalization. There may be lovely people who've got their pronouns up on their bio because they want to be fun and friendly, and they want to be available as a shoulder to cry on, or as someone who you can talk to about anything. If I see the pronouns, I just run a mile. Listen to this story. Shani says, I know a gay guy who was so into a girl when he was younger. Now the woman is a man and they're together. I think they can fall pregnant, can't they?
Well, that happened
that's
on
a complicated love
story.
Like,
that happened on Oprah. Remember that? When the guy, it was like, oh, the story is this man is pregnant. No. It was a transgender woman.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, a miracle has happened. A man is pregnant. No. It's a transgender woman. So, that's not.
But so, to Simpiwe's point, like, if you can be polite, be polite. If someone wants to be called him and her, so what? No skin off my back. I can do that. I can call you whatever you want me to call you. If I say Simpiwe and you say to me, no, it's Sipiwe, then I'll say, oh, sorry, I got it wrong. Sorry, Sipiwe, right? Same thing goes for a pronoun or anything else. So on an individual level, you can ask me to call you something and I will usually be only too happy to do that. The problem is when you force me to do it, or you hold me legally responsible, or the government gets involved. And if I call you the wrong thing, I get punished for it. That to me sounds like you're going too far. And if you want me to do that in school or in university as a kid, or you want me to do that in the workplace, now you're starting to encroach on my freedoms as an ordinary citizen. And on an individual basis, I have no problem doing that. I just think, if you want me to call you shithead, I'll call you shithead. If that's your choice, it's totally cool. I'm okay with that. But don't legislate or regulate or force me to put up with your own fantasy world. If you want to be called mushroom kind, and you expect me to call you, a 7-syllable long word every time I see you, now you're really starting to like push the limits of what is politeness. And that's where I think it breaks down. I have no issues with being polite with person A or B on an individual basis. But the moment it starts getting more complicated than that, then you're starting to take up my day. And I have better things to do than get your pronouns right every 5 minutes, especially when they change like that.
Yeah. And also, we've done this magical thing in the Western world, largely, is that we've agreed to something called democracy. And everybody keeps telling me it's the will of the masses. It's like, excuse me, 98% of people, from a stat I've recently read, right? I was reading an article this, 98% of people are still what you might call conservative and are straight, male, and refer to themselves as he and she. So most people we still encounter, contrary to what the media tell us, an overwhelming majority, 98% I read, are still just cisgender, straight, he and she. Like the transgender community is so tiny, and it doesn't mean I'm anti-transgender, by the way. I'd have at it, so that's cool. But just be aware that most of our world is operating as he and she, and you can't persecute me. And the evolutionary pattern is the brain learns patterns, right? That's what we do, and that's how we see the world. We don't see the world actually how it's happening. We see it the way our minds have formed it, and 98% of the world is he and she. Just so, that's a stat I read. I mean, you can maybe correct me if you find
right. Right. I mean, it's a tiny proportion of the people. Tracy says, a label often does the heavy lifting for shit personality. That's according to Jim Jeffries. I love that. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. I think that's much more succinctly put. It could be a way for people to draw attention to themselves, says MB. Like they, them, and their. Who is them and they? It's all very confusing. And also, I have a problem with people who pervert the language just for their own importance. You know what I mean? Like I'm a really particular linguist. I like good grammar, and I like language to be used in the most precise way possible, because that way everybody will understand what you mean. A lot of people are misunderstood in this world because they don't explain themselves properly, or they're not understood properly by their audience. Now, them and they are usually used to describe groups of people. And if you pervert that to be a singular person, you are actually twisting the language. And you don't have the right to do that. The language is not going to be molded to your liking as an individual. You must fit in with the language. Now, you can invent new words, but you can't make me use them. Then you can change the meaning of words, but you can't make me understand them. In other words, as much as you consider the language to be plastic and malleable, there are some things that are stock standard and have been since Shakespeare's time, certainly in English. And there are certain words that exist and don't exist in every language in the world, from isiZulu right through to Azerbaijani. And if you think that you're important enough to effect a change in all of them, good luck to you. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how that works with that 98% that Mbulelo is talking about. Paul says, what if someone looks like a man in a woman's body? What will you call them? I suppose whatever they want to be called, but you might make a mistake every now and then, and they've got to be forgiving about that because they're not in the majority. There was once an uproar.
And by the way, that happens, right? Like that does happen, to be very clear, is that some women, and they can still give, they are women biologically, is that they have extra testosterone, right? And so the features are exaggerated, jawline and sort of shoulders and things like that. So yeah, whatever they want. And who cares, for goodness sake? Are they a nice person? Oh,
Yeah. Derek says, is it not perhaps a type of showing that you are one in a tribe in an effort to gain social brownie points? How many people actually believe half of the utter bullshit coming out of their mouths? Well, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. The only people who should be called they are horizontally challenged ones. Cabello being hard about the big people there. Nasty. Michelle says, maybe the people that want to be called something else should wear a label like a badge. Well, that's maybe, but it makes me think of
no. We had a little thing in Germany,
not
39 to 45. That didn't go so well last time. Let's not go back there.
When we make an exception to the rule, we make everyone a fool, says Michael. Robin says, who cares about your crazy sexual perversions anyway? That's a good point. If people want to twist the language to I'm sorry, Matthew, that doesn't make much sense. I can't figure that out. Gareth, you use less instead of fewer 3 times a week, you hypocrite. Yeah, but I don't know how that works. I'm the first to admit it. And I don't want to hear from you either about it. Go and fuck yourself with fewer and less. I don't care. Oh, thank you. Onkhopotse says here, there's so many interesting comments coming through here from people about like what you have to do. Women have distinct features that let you know. You don't have to be horrible to people is usually a good guide. You can be kind, but people mustn't have unrealistic and unreasonable expectations of you, because your whole world is not focused on them and their identity. You also have stuff to do in the day. You have, to repair your car. You have to feed your children. You have to make sure that you do the work that you have on your agenda for the day. You're not wandering through the world thinking about them the whole time like they are. And I feel like that's what's going on a lot of the time right now. People are just themselves.
I think I've said this before. Like, it's why I don't like political correctness, because you can never really get down to it, right? For me, I don't have to be mean to anybody. I try and roll like that. But I also don't have to be nice to you. And nobody wants to hear that part. Everyone's told, and it does worry me when I hear it being told to young children that you're born special. You are not. It is your duty to make yourself pleasant. It is your duty to make yourself lovable. It is your duty to be pleasant to those around you. You are not some divine creature that just because you live, you are special. You are not. You must be polite. You must, these things are important. And then we'll come correct to you as well. And I think I see a lot of, okay, well, I'm whatever letter I pick and I can be a douchebag and there's nothing you can say about it because I'm that thing. No. As a human, let's get down to the bottom line. Are you a dickhead? I'm going to treat you like that. Are you a nice person? I'm going to treat you like that. And I don't care whether you're gay, straight, trans, whatever it may be. It's got nothing to do with that.
Simpiwe Eleutherius says, if Simpiwe is confused, imagine how confused Gen X parents are raising Gen Z kids in this nightmare.
It's absolutely horrible. Like, it's like I'm all for like people wanting to live in their truth, but it's also like, this is a lot. Like, these are so many terms. We went from boy, girl to like this, that, trans woman, trans man, and it's so many terms that even I'm just like, wow. And this is basically the next generation, and that's my thing. It's like they're going to be speaking I know that my generation speaks English that we don't even understand at times, but the next generation, I don't even know if we're going to be able to understand what they say, because people are going to, hi, I'm Simpiwe. I'm a cis woman who identifies as
gender non-binary.
Gender non-binary. Like, it's like, wow, like that's a long sentence. You could have just been like, hi, I'm Simpiwe,
but
and I'm black, female.
Yeah.
Done.
But even the whole black thing, because if we're talking about sex and gender, and they're the same thing to me, I don't know the difference. And you're talking about sexual preference, then race is also the same. You have to treat it the same way, otherwise we're not being consistent. And then you're going to expect me to call someone like Rachel Dolezal, who's quite clearly a white woman. She's got 2 white parents, and she's, she in her head she thinks she's black. But now I have to think and talk to her in a certain way because she thinks she's black. That's crazy.
confusing.
It shouldn't, again, totally, as Mbulelo said at the beginning of this whole conversation, and thanks for opening this can of worms, Simpi, where we're having a perfectly happy morning. As Mbulelo said earlier, whatever you label yourself, it's your business. And actually no one cares. And those are the least interesting things about you. Yeah.
Touche.
Just be decent.
And as Charles says, or you could just say, well, that's interesting, and then move swiftly along with your own life. Exactly. Yeah, there we go. All right, very nice, Charles, bringing a nice end to that point. All right, there is obviously some stuff happening on Cliff Central Sport that Mbulelo wants to tell us about. The English Premier League begins next week, so bye-bye to everyone for 10 months, all those soccer widows.
Auf Wiedersehen. Shout out to everyone I know. So from next weekend, I'm not interested in anything but the English Premier League, and I actually don't care what you're doing with your life. I don't want to know. I don't want to know that you broke up with your girlfriend. I just don't want to know. And to my mom, if she doesn't call me and see me in the next 2 weeks, I'll see you in May next year. That is it. It's the greatest show on earth. Nobody matters besides this event. So
this is why we're not friends, Mbulelo. This is why. Because in a friendship, you need to water it. You need to give and receive. And in as much as I know that you're into sports, you also need to make time for other people and what they're interested. Imagine if we were friends and I'm like, well, I'm into bowling and I want to go and it's bowling season. And all the time. Like, and now you're telling us that we're only going to see you next year. Can you imagine? So much happens in people's lives, and you basically saying, I don't care until this event is over. Like, wow, being your friend is a lot.
Whoa. Why would I be your friend if you're not into football? That doesn't make any sense, what you're saying there.
But you see, even that in itself, have
all your friends are football fans.
So you guys are all going to disappear into this cave and you're all going to watch the soccer and you're all like, oh my gosh, this is the only thing I'm worried about for the next few months?
Yes. Oh, I don't see a problem with this. Like, I've never understood. How do people socialize that don't watch sport? I've never understood that. Like, what do you do?
Okay, so clearly you're in the minority in this case, believe it or not, because Simpiwe and I both completely understand how you could be friends with someone and not talk about sport all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, to me, when we start talking about sport, then my friendship may have run out of runway.
But what I'm saying is I don't understand how you're so comfortable to say, well, there's this new season of sports starting, so you're not going to see me for the next few months. And I'm saying if we were friends, I'd understand that you're into sports, but I also need to talk to my friend now and again, and I need to see what's going on, and we need to check in. And you basically saying, I'm not going to have that for the next few months until this is over, and that's unfair.
Lovely Lady Lee says, Simpiwe, it's not a marriage, it's a friendship. Ooh,
but friendships need to be watered. No. Ooh. Friendships need to be watered, and you need to be able to make time for the people that matter to you. I don't call everyone my friend. It's okay if I don't see an acquaintance in 3, 4, 5 months. But the minute I say, oh, Mbulelo, you're my friend, that means I want to spend time with you now and again. I'm not saying every weekend. Also, don't get that twisted. But now you're saying a whole 6 months, no, we're not going to talk unless it's sports related.
What Simpiwe is saying is almost exactly what so many football wives do say. I'm not talking about wives of footballers. I'm talking about women who are married to men who love football, for example. She's not being unreasonable, Mbulelo. There are a lot of these guys, and they get so involved in their football season that they actually just disappear. And their wives are like, hey, I thought there was a relationship going on here. So to go back to the point that was made a little bit earlier, about how it's not, this is lovely Lady Lee's comment, that it's not a marriage, it's a friendship. What if you are one of those women who's married to a guy like Mbulelo, who's totally absorbed by the football? You basically don't have a husband then, or a boyfriend, for however many nights that the football's on. And you know, how do you just switch off to that for 6 months? It's ridiculous.
Sure.
It's a real thing. And it's a great question. I read a book by a really great sports broadcaster. He actually kind of shaped it, a guy called Skip Bayless, right? His wife wrote a book, an incredible book about how to be married to somebody who's addicted to sport. And she made some compelling points, and I wish she was born 25 years later. You know, shout out to Skip, because she gets it.
What's her name? Skip Bayless.
No, his name is Skip Bayless. She's got an Italian name. I forget what her name is. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. So you're not alone, Bulelo. Look here, Dude 69 says, "I'm with you. Set those friends free to go and play in the traffic."
And if you want to see me, you know what? Sport is the last.
I'm gonna see you if there's a game playing. Is that what you're saying?
Sport is the last appointment viewing left on television. It is still the English Premier League is the biggest TV show in the world, followed by the NFL. They are the only ones every weekend that are doing triple Game of Thrones numbers, and the Premier League's a different beast. You want to see me? It's perfect. You know what? Don't even ask. Saturday, Sunday, you know exactly where I'll be. Come and hang out.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
And during that time, you're going to be not able to talk to you at all because you're going to be glued to the TV.
No, an hour and a half before, an hour and a half after, and then I'm going home because I need to watch the highlights.
Well, here we go.
No time whatsoever.
A different Bulelo says the girlfriends get a short window during international breaks, which are a bit of a heartbreak for football lovers.
Yeah, I don't want to explain to you what that is. It's a nightmare.
You know what, guys? I'm just so pleased that none of this is an issue to me. I don't have a relationship in the first place, so I don't have to be explaining myself. If I want to sit and watch TV series all day on Saturday, I can do it. If I want to sleep, I can do it. And I know that this is probably pissing off all those people who are married and have kids, because those are real responsibilities, and you can't turn away from them no matter how much you want to watch sport or sleep or whatever it is you want to do. I can do whatever I like. That is the way I want my life to be. And yeah, Mbulelo wants to fill his days with sport. That's great. Simpiwe, you might want to have someone in your life, and that's also great. But we all can decide, right? What a great time to be alive, because there used to be a time when none of us got to decide anything. Someone else was in charge of us all the time, whether it was someone in a tall hat, someone with a crown on, someone with a ring on their finger. Didn't matter what how important you thought you were. You had duties to perform. You were not your own person. So just do your thing. I'm not going to judge anybody. If you're in a relationship with someone who loves sport and you found a balance, explain. Tell us how, because I think lots of people want to be there. Let's turn our attention to Yaku Voigt, who you've met before on our show before. And if you've been listening to Unbundled, which is on cliffcentral.com, it's a great show. And that's brought to you by Catalytic, which is Yaku's business. They basically demystify the technology and connectivity that we need in our world these days. So Yaku's been doing that. They explore cloud, they explore communications, internet security, all of that stuff. And if you haven't listened to the show, you need to start listening to it. But I wanted to get him on the show this morning, on our show, to talk about how difficult it has become, especially during coronavirus. And, you know, Yaku's one of those people who hasn't missed a beat during coronavirus. He's been there, the shows have gone on. He's been putting out really interesting content, and he hasn't let anything get in his way. But there are a lot of businesses that are struggling at the moment. And if you're not online and your business isn't yet able to translate whatever they do into some sort of digital form, you're going to find it much, much harder, especially during times like lockdowns, to survive. So Yaku's come up with a pretty good idea. Hey, Yaku, how are you?
Good morning, everybody. That was
nice to see you.
It was quite an interesting family meeting that preceded this intro. So
yeah, how's that?
I'm a little bit tired now.
Are you also a sports fan?
I don't understand anything about football. When I'm close to my old man, I'll watch a bit of rugby. But unfortunately, I think I have to admit, I've been married for so long. I think the relationship won. So one up for you, Simpiwe.
Yeah. So in other words, I mean, like you would be on her side and say you've got to sacrifice some of the selfishness that Mulelo like evidences here, because if you want a relationship to be successful, and he's never had a successful relationship, neither have I, right, Mulelo? Otherwise we'd still be in them. Yaku's saying you need it's a bit of balance, right? Give and take.
Well, we spoke about it yesterday, Gareth. Nothing's for free, so there's no act that is truly altruistic. So you have to exchange.
Now, you say that, but you've come up with a pretty good plan here that really could help a lot of small and medium enterprises in South Africa. We're going to launch something new with Yaku and with Catalytic in the next while, and it's not going to be about them or their business at all. It's going to be about you and your business. So this is your idea. Tell us what you want to achieve here and why you think we need this.
So, Gareth, I think and I think you said it earlier. We as South Africans, we've been through a lot. There's been multiple lockdown events, unrest, all that type of stuff, and I think we've got reason to be generally just I almost want to say in a negative space. But being in business, like Queen said, the show must go on. And what we decided, what we want to do is, do something positive and give business a boost. So we're going to invite businesses to submit to us, and I think that's the other thing that we spoke about yesterday. Sometimes if you look at, there's nobody more passionate about a business than the MD or the owner. We spoke about some of the lame billboards on the highway, if I can say that. So we want to invite people to come onto the show and just come and tell us about your business. It's all about whoever joins the show and tell people what their business does, why it exists, what problems it solves, and just a general positive boost for people that's passionate about business and looking forward and wanting to build something special.
I think that's amazing. So essentially, you're going to create a platform where other people can tell you about their businesses, and we can inform our whole community and much wider communities too about those little businesses, what they do, and maybe you want to look for suppliers and partners who are doing those things, who are really working on the ground, not these big corporations, because that's not where we're going to grow the economy, right? We're going to grow the economy by small and medium enterprises. And I mean, a lot of people talk about this stuff, but you guys actually want to do it. And I know that you help a lot of small and medium enterprises with your business these days, Yaku. And I know we're probably talking about stuff that you discuss every week on Unbundled. But if you're not online, you're really going to find it hard to get involved in the modern economy and to stake your claim and to keep growing. What you guys do is you provide the infrastructure and the backbone of what so many companies need when it comes to technology, right? Explain that, because maybe that'll get people thinking, hell, I need to be on this show, not just because it's a great place for me to talk about my business and to get some free advertising, but also because Yaku could maybe give me some advice about how we can get our company up and running in a technical way to be ready for the future.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. So I think, and even from my own perspective, as the show has progressed from where we started, I think virtually every single conversation comes back to the fact that if you don't embrace online and I almost want to say digitize yourself, you're going to get left behind. And I've got to be honest, I think when we started the show, I would have said, well, probably this discussion is not for everybody. If I'm selling industrial pipes somewhere in the East Rand or whatever, maybe it doesn't have to change. The past 30 years is fine. Yeah. But I think as every conversation that we have, it just becomes more evident that's what needs to happen. And what we really try and do is give people an objective view of what's happening in the industry, so people can make up their mind. And I think probably the biggest problem or that we're trying to solve with Unbundled is people don't know what they don't know. So if we put the information at their fingertips, then it's easier for them to make decisions. And I think that's it's the same principle that this new initiative is based upon. There's some really big hidden gems out there, and people just don't know about them. So and that's why we came up with that.
All right. So are you looking for any specific businesses, or just anybody who's got somebody who works in a township who makes homemade food, right through from that person to a major company that puts down infrastructure? Are you happy to talk to all of them and to have all of them
Anybody,
come and explain. So, okay, the best way to do this, by the way, if you're listening to us now and you go, all right, I'm convinced I want to get involved. The best way to do this is contact@cliffcentral.com. That's the email address. So if you email us right now and tell us what your business is, and we've done this before on cliffcentral.com in terms of, talking to small businesses and giving them a place where they could tell their story, but not on the scale that Yaku wants to do it. So if you're interested and you think that your business needs a little bit of a push, maybe you want to explain to people in the market what you do, and you think that you've got a product or a service that's worth selling, then tell us about it. Contact@cliffcentral.com, CONTACT @cliffcentral.com, and we will make sure that Yaku gets all of those emails, because he's looking to talk to you about your business, find out what it is that you do, and really shine the light on you, not on anybody else, not on us at Cliff Central or on him at Catalytic, but really to give you the opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I think anybody that's interesting and passionate and unique and innovative, that's what we're looking for.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. I'm going to put the email address up on the screen now as well, just so that you can send us your emails and tell us a little bit about your business. Obviously, in the email, give us a bit of a summary, a little précis of what it is that you do, so that we can also make sure that we're ready to put you on and make the best use of the time. But if you do want to do this, then now is the time to strike. So it's contact@cliffcentral.com. Send us an email to that address, and we will put you in the runnings and make sure that you get hold of Yaku and that he gets hold of you, and we can start showing off what it is that you do. And remember, Unbundled with Catalytic demystifies the technology of connectivity for everybody, explores cloud, communications, security, and we'll find out more as we listen to that show with Yaku going forward too. So Yaku, it sounds great. And I'm thrilled that we can do this with you guys. And you know what? We may just discover the next big business that started small. We may just discover the next Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos here. I mean, they didn't know they were going to be successful when they started, right?
We hope. I think
God
it's
knows.
there. I think it's somewhere in there.
We need these successes in South Africa. We got a lot of problems to solve, and there are plenty of opportunities where there are problems to be solved.
100%. And I mean, everybody knows the only way we're going to do that is employment, and it's small business, small and medium business that drives that engine, So we want risk takers, people that's passionate and want to build something positive. Definitely so.
Awesome stuff, Yaku. Always good to see you. And make sure that you tune in to listen to Unbundled. You can find all the podcasts on cliffcentral.com. Yaku always has really interesting guests in there with him too. They talk about all the things that may be central to digitizing and taking your business online. And Catalytic, all their details are up there as well. If you want to find out how to get hold of them, especially if you need that help, then they are the people to talk to. Awesome, Yaku. Good to see you. Thanks so much, man.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks, team.
No probs. Good to see you. There's that email address. Now you have it. You have no excuse. Get on it immediately. Get it. Love it.
Yaku said, don't fight anymore. I don't know if you caught that at the end.
We're not fighting. We're arguing like most families do. And he did call it a family meeting, right?
Yeah, he's a super funny guy. He's one of, listen, I do like some of the clients at Cliff Central, but he's an electrifying character.
Yeah. We've got such great people who we work with, and it makes it so easy to do things that actually have impact. What he's talking about here, most people are interested in what they can get out of it. And we sat in a meeting yesterday, and he's like, let's see what we can help other people do. That's where you see people who have got a growth mentality and who see the big picture.
You know what makes him quite cool to me is, there's the cheesy, like sort of over patriotic person, but he's like just the only way I can describe him, because it's just so organic. It comes out of him, the way he talks about having business in South Africa. Every now and then we'll have a laugh and a chat. He's just a lacquer South African. Like I can't describe it any other way. Like he's just a lacquer oak, and it's amazing to see what he's done and employ the people he has and build that business and just be a lacquer ook.
He's got a
and
great
he loves
sense
South Africa.
He's got a great sense of humor too, and I think he drives his people crazy at Catalytic, because they always. I often, I'll have a chat to him, and then I'll look around the room, and everybody else is going, "Oh, we're going to bite off a whole lot more that we have to chew now." But that's what leadership should should mean for a company, is growth and moving in new directions. And he's certainly not scared of that. All right.
And he's got energy. He's got such awesome energy. I love people like that.
So at the risk of having another argument this morning, Bolelo has a really great story about when couples discuss money. And you've already told us about one or two stories when it comes to your friends who seem to have the most bizarre relationships in the world. So when do you discuss money? Up front or once things get serious? Because we all know that old story that the prenup, especially if you are serious and you're getting married, the prenup is not for when the times are good. It's there for when the times are bad. So tell us the story and we'll try and see what this is all about.
So a friend of mine who, God bless her, I've known her for 28, 29 years or whatever. So gives me a call 2 nights ago. And she says to me, like, what did you do on the weekend and whatever? She just yaps all the time. I love her, so I put up with it.
Oh my God. How he talks about you behind your back. Yeah. All the time.
Well, she listens to the show. Anyway, yep. So I call her Schnitzel and I say, all right, Schnitzel, blah, blah, you kind of. And then I say, okay, what did you do this weekend? And she goes, no, I went away with someone I knew that I met. I haven't told you about. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And she's like, no, well, yeah, as well, I paid for the thing. So I said, wait a minute now. What do you mean you paid for the whole weekend? Like, and they just kind of met. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. Well, because she's just this person, like, she loves love. And I hate to stereotype, but typically Latin. So she's Portuguese or Portuguese South African. So she loves the idea of romance and all of that. And she'll do that. It's her nature, she'll harm herself to help anyone. She'd give. So I'm like, wait, what do you mean you paid for the weekend with some guy you don't know? Explain to me. And in her mind, she's just like, no. What do you mean? I'm like, if you start like this, where do you think this is going? Like, where do you think somebody who lets you pay for a weekend on the first time you guys go away together, where do you see this going? Like, grand, how do you see this going? And she was so taken aback, as though I'm the horrible person. I was like, what the hell are you thinking? What are you thinking? And I had to kind of sit her down and talk her through this, because she just sees romance, this person. Yeah. And that's when I asked her, and I thought to myself, you know what? So she never ever.
What did she do here? She paid for a weekend away.
And she tells me she paid for all the meals or for whatever, his wallet was never coming out kind of thing. But she was just like, okay, we're having a good time. Yeah. Some people this is.
There's so many songs that I can refer to right now. I don't want no scrub,
man can't get no love from me.
Hey. The side of his best friends trying to
holler at me.
That's the type of guy I don't want. Let me first start off with this. I am very much old school. I would like, a guy to pay for most of the things if I'm in a relationship with him. With that said, in this case, because they don't know each other, I think it's only fair that it could have been a 50-50 setup. I don't think one party should have paid for everything, especially since they don't know each other like that. As you said, she is setting, the precedence of going forward. This is how it's going to be. And that's not what I want in a relationship. Until we get married, and then we can talk about you pay 70%, I pay 30%. But that's my thing, that it's cringe that they were talking about it, and then he didn't even be like, okay, cool, I will take this, and I will. No, it just talks about the kind of man that he is as well, not just financially. In the relationship, I don't think he's going to lead you. He's not going to be that guy. He's going to be like, no. Yeah, babes, you need to go do this. You need to go do. He's just gonna chill on the sofa and be like, hey, it's another weekend. No, red flag. Switch off. No.
Yeah, I don't know. As a guy, I'm pretty old school as well. I'm happy to pay for the meal, especially if it's a date and I'm taking you out on a date. There's no way I'm going to let you pay. I mean, if you really argue with me, then we can go 50-50 at a max, but I'm not going to. And normally I won't have an argument with anybody about that, because I think it's, if I invited you on a date, then it's me to pay, full stop. Even with friends, I'll get into an argument with you occasionally if you try to pay. But the fact is, for a weekend away with someone you don't know, and he's happy to just let you pay, like his wallet doesn't come out once, that tells me more about him than it does about her. Generosity, we must never punish generosity, because I think generosity is a great human characteristic. And if someone is generous, that usually to me indicates they're the kind of person I do want in my life. I feel like I'm a generous person most of the time, and I'm happy to pay. It doesn't actually matter how it breaks down, 50-50, me most of the time, you most of the time. But if someone doesn't even reach for their wallet, that's telling me a whole lot about them. And if you're a guy and you're being treated to a weekend away, you pick up the tab for the meals, you pick up the tab for everything else. Usually it's the other way around. You know, the girl doesn't reach for her wallet. I know lots of girls who just have spent a lot of their lives getting stuff for free. And maybe they're lucky. Maybe they're really pretty. Maybe they've got great personalities. Good for them. I feel generosity should be rewarded, not punished. And we shouldn't say to your friend, Mbulelo, that she's an idiot or anything. Even though here in the comments,
I did say that to her.
Annette, you did. You called her an idiot. Annette says, I've done that too. I took this Royal Livingston in Zambia and I paid for the whole lot. What an idiot. Now, I suppose, Annette, you're saying you're the idiot because you paid. But I don't think you're an idiot. I think you were taken advantage of.
Aye.
But being generous is not, idiots don't, they don't pay because
here's why I'm so offended by what you guys have just spoken about. So we're on polar opposite ends here. You know, Gareth is, and my friend, she's so generous. It's revolting how nice she is actually at the core as a person. It makes me sick. She's so naturally nice. But it's like, for me, everybody must, for me, I will never, ever, I would not entertain being in a relationship with somebody who doesn't work. Like for me, it's a non-starter. Right up front, I'm always very clear. Let's talk about how you handle money. I like to get that conversation out up front because if it, money is not a thing until it's a thing. It is the one thing that it's not a thing until it's a thing. So let's deal with that issue early.
How does that conversation go? How do you deal with money? What kind of responses do you usually get?
Taken aback because most people don't talk about money. But my first question always is, how much do you save a month? Like, what do you do with your money? If we're going to get it serious in a relationship, tell me what you do with your money. Because everybody's invested in their money. If you ever deal with people, right, you can offend people in every way about how they look. Once you get near someone's money, you start to see the real character come out in people, right? Because that's how I stay safe. That's how I look after my kids. That's how I pay for whatever it may be. So money for me is, just in the world we live in, is a good indicator of getting really close to that person and who they are. And I like to do that up front. How you conduct your money, right, for me, kind of lets me know what your headspace is. And then I can kind of extrapolate whether this is going to work or not. For me, otherwise, if you're not good with money, it's a non-starter for me.
But these questions that you ask on the onset, I feel personally, if you were like asking me those on like the second or third date, I'd be like, why do you want to know? Because it has nothing to do with you at this point, whether I'm good at it, whether I'm not.
Almost like
let's not waste time.
You're a Nigerian scammer who wants to know how.
You know what? First date, we pay 50-50 or it's nothing anyway. So I'm not big on I'm not a romantic. Like 50-50 straight away. Let's keep this thing moving. And if it's not going to work, no worries.
Great. What I'm saying is this, for me personally, right? I would like to think I manage my money pretty well, but I'm not trying to have money conversations with someone A, I don't know, and B, that I'm comfortable with, right? So that's the difference. Is when we're out on a date, if you ask me out on a date, hey, do I have that expectation that you would pay? Yes. Do I have my purse with me just in case you can't? Yes. When we're doing weekend aways and now we're going to be together for 3 days, it's very important for us to talk about, okay, are you paying for accommodation and I'll pay for transportation? Are you paying for this and I'll pay for that? It has nothing to do with how I manage my money. It's just how you and I are going to
manage the weekend.
Yes. And that for me is very important. It says a lot
have you
for
ever
that
had
guy.
Have you ever had someone say to you at the beginning when you say, let's have the money conversation, they say like, no, I refuse to have that conversation with you. None of
Absolutely,
your business.
I have. And great. Then you're not the one for me. Because I want to get to the bottom line. I want to get to the bottom line. Don't.
Jesus,
absolutely. And I'm not joking. Gareth. I have had these people. And I've met people who are perfectly comfortable talking about it. and we take it from there. So that's
See,
You sound like a gold digger, hey? Like,
Yeah, you do.
like
I know that's not what you're interested in. You want to know where the lines are. You like very clearly defined parameters. I get that, but that's such a complex thing to ask, because I was always taught growing up that it is vulgar to talk about money. It belies some kind of parsimony. It's like you're very you're maybe too obsessed with money. I know you're not. I know that your reasons are perfectly sensible if you sit down and talk about them the way we are now on the show. But if you sat down with some girl and you've known her a couple of weeks and you say, right, let's have the money conversation now, that's going to scare the hell out of her. It'll scare the hell out of her.
It goes both ways. It goes both ways. And for me, I just want to get to the bottom line. Like, are we going to do this thing or not? And if it offends you, this is pretty much how I'm going to be the rest of the relationship anyway, because I like to get down to things. So might as well.
Pronouns says, okay, that's too personal on a date. Over time, it's fine.
Fair enough. That's
Timing
fair.
is everything. Here's an interesting story from Michael. He says, the French used to have sex before the first date and then start or stop the relationship from there. They reckon if sober sex doesn't work to start with, money becomes too much of an issue.
That's a good one. That's good.
That woman who took the guy to the Royal Livingston, how do I get her number? Says Carl. Tracy says, because I liked what Simpiwe said there about, like, she takes her wallet in case, because you never know what's going to happen, even though she probably expects the guy to pay on the first date, which is not an unreasonable expectation for a girl. If the guy expects the girl to pay on the first date, to me, that seems a bit...
Wait, no. Whoa.
I'm running for the hills. I am like, you and I is not happening. Like, I will pay, but best believe I'm not meeting you, speaking to you after that date. Like, it's done. It's done. It's done.
I love the hypocrisy.
Especially if you ask me out. Like, that's
I
the thing.
love the hypocrisy in that, because you know, people need to be clear. Do you want to be treated equal, or do you want to be treated the same? Because I've always said I'm not interested in equal. I want to treat you the same. So if the archetype is men must pay 50%, and we're looking to get to this dream world called equal, pay 50%. You must be very clear. Equal or the same?
No, I think you've never heard those I want to be equal from my lips in a relationship setup. No. If you ask me out on a date, do I expect you to pay? Yes. I also have the same mentality. If I ask you out, if I say, Mulelo, let's go out for ice cream, in my mind, I
don't need ice cream. I'm 8% body fat, but I get the analogy.
You see, this is why it wouldn't work. But I'm just saying that if I'm the one who initiated that, I would pay. But if you are like, yeah, Sims, let's go out 7:30 tonight, I get all dressed and I'm ready to rock and roll, and then afterwards you're like 50-50. Chief, I'm done. I'll pay. Sharp. But I'm done with you. I'm done.
I'm the same. I don't look at relationships as equal, because I don't know it from your point of view. If I'm going to offer to take you out on a date, then I'm offering to pay. It's part of the deal. If I ask you to come with me on a weekend away and you say, awesome, then I'm paying, because I've invited you. There's no mystery there. You don't have to have a conversation about it. I expect that I'm going to pay because I invited you. And if you invite me, I'm bringing my wallet, like Simpiwe said, because I'm not going to be caught in a situation where you go, I left my wallet, and then it's embarrassing for all of us. But I'll make the decision after that as to whether or not it's worth me hanging around you again. But as a guy, I don't see things as being equal. Guys have to pay. That's how I was raised. That's how I like the world. That's how I'm going to keep doing my thing. And if you're one of those ultra egalitarian, equality obsessed, equity obsessed feminists, then I'm not going to date you anyway. So what the hell do we have to do with each other?
Fair dinkum.
No, there's no equality. I think equality is backside. I've said it a million times on this show. I think that this obsession with equality is the most dangerous thing in the world right now, because it's completely unattainable. It's utopian in the extreme. It never works. It's not going to happen with me. You like that stuff? I'm not your guy.
I don't want to treat you equal. I want to treat you the same. So if you're saying that
what do you mean?
Men and women must be treated the same, pay 50%. No, pay 50%. I'm not in this world where, first of all, do you work? If you don't work, it's a non-starter for me. I don't come from that background where women don't work in my household, so that ain't gonna work. I don't find that attractive.
Your ploy to chase away everyone who's ever loved you, Bulelo, is working really well this morning.
This is unbelievable. This is, and by the way, my friend is maybe your one of your biggest fans of all time, Gareth, and she will be listening to this. And I told her I was going to tell the story. She said, "No, don't tell it." Blah blah. blah. Now, you've just said I'm trying to chase her away.
Your friend is a generous human being. If she was an idiot and she was taken advantage of, that's the price you pay for generosity. I would rather be called generous and occasionally be taken advantage of than be a schnorrer who never spends money, who expects everyone else to pay, who never takes out their own wallet, and people go, "Ugh, you do not want to know that guy. He is so about money." I'd rather be a generous fool any day of the week. So your friend is the kind of person I could date, not you. You are the kind of person who's hard work. Everything with you is hard work. It's like a board meeting just to decide what is going to happen in your next 5 minutes of the relationship. Yes, and then you disappear for soccer for 6 months.
Imagine, and then he's gonna come back and be like, but you knew, and then everything must be fine. And then
I told you up front. You knew up front that football comes first, and you get the halftime break.
It's all great that you are specializing, you are vocalizing your needs, but other people also have needs that they need to be met, And I think that's the one thing you miss. It's like, great, you're into sports, but there's other people that are not, and you just kind of need to meet them halfway now and again. That's all we say. Have a bit of a heart, which you clearly don't have.
I love that you think nobody exists who does fit into my archetype. They are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you know.
Sure. Yeah, it's here's the problem, Sipiwe. It's Mbulelo's world, and we all just live in it.
You couldn't have said it better. You couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, listen, we've got to call this quits because it's we're well over time now. CliffCentral.com. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you have had a happy time, let us know by subscribing and liking and all of that stuff that you have to do on YouTube. If you listen to the podcast, obviously you can listen whenever you want, and we will be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. bright and early for the live show. Don't miss it. This is a Wednesday morning podcast, and it will be available forever, like all good podcasts are, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get the good stuff. Also, make sure that you listen to Yaku's podcast, because if you've missed out on that, you are missing out, especially if you've got a new business, small business, medium business, maybe you've been going for a while, you need a bit of a leg up. Yaku and his team are looking forward to giving you exactly that as a part of the Unbundled series and something new that we're launching there with them in the next week or two. Contact at cliffcentral.com if you want to get hold of us. Cheers.